The Umbral Collective had observed humanity for 3 standard cycles before making their assessment. From their shadow ships lurking in the void between stars, they watched Earth's children fumble through their nights with artificial illumination, burning away the blessed darkness with crude fire and electromagnetic radiation. "Pathetic," hissed Prime Shadow Keth Mori as he reviewed the surveillance data. His species had evolved in the lightless depths of gas giant atmospheres, their sensory organs attuned to heat signatures, electromagnetic fields, and the subtle vibrations that traveled through dense matter. To them, light was painful, unnecessary, a crutch for inferior beings. They fear the dark so much, they poison their own planet with illumination, agreed Shadow Tactician Vorthek, gesturing toward the night-side images of Earth's major cities. "Observe how they cluster around their light sources. When we extinguish their suns, they will surrender within rotations." The collective strategy was elegant in its simplicity. Their technology could manipulate stellar output, dimming stars to barely perceptible levels. They had conquered 17 light-dependent species this way, watching civilizations collapse as their worlds plunged into eternal twilight. The survivors always begged for the return of their precious illumination. Humanity would be no different. The war began not with explosions or invasions, but with Earth's sun simply fading. Solar observatories detected the anomaly first, a gradual but accelerating decrease in luminosity that defied every known law of stellar physics. Within months, the sun's output had dropped to 20% of normal levels. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the orbital defense platform Nightfall, watching the dim ember that had once been humanity's life-giving star. Around her, the crew worked by the glow of emergency lighting, their faces grim but determined. "Status report," she ordered. "Civilian populations are adapting faster than projected," reported Lieutenant Commander Park. "Underground cities are at 90% capacity. Geothermal and nuclear power grids are stable. Agricultural domes are maintaining food production." Elena nodded. The collective's first miscalculation had been assuming that humanity's use of artificial light indicated dependence rather than mastery. When the sun dimmed, humanity didn't panic, they adapted. Cities went underground. Farming moved to climate-controlled environments. The species that had once huddled around fires in caves now built their own stars in the form of fusion reactors. But adaptation was only the beginning. "Ma'am," called sensor operator Chen from her station, "we're detecting movement in the asteroid belt. The thermal signatures match the anomalies we've been tracking." The Umbral Collective had finally revealed themselves, confident that the dimmed system would give them every advantage. Their ships were designed for stealth in the void, nearly invisible to traditional sensors, perfect hunters in the darkness they had imposed. They were not prepared for what humanity had been building during those months of artificial night. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo stood in the command center of Lunar Base, surrounded by holographic displays that showed the solar system in perfect detail. But these weren't optical sensors, they were gravitational wave detectors, quantum field fluctuation monitors, and neutrino scanners. Instruments that made light irrelevant. "They think darkness is their ally," she murmured, watching as the enemy fleet maneuvered through the outer system. "They don't realize we've been fighting in the dark for millennia." The human counterattack began with something the collective had never encountered: complete sensory overload. Ships that had been invisible suddenly found themselves painted by targeting lasers, radio transmissions, and focused electromagnetic pulses that turned their stealth advantages into liabilities. Shadow Commander Veleth Nix felt his ship shudder as something impacted the hull. Impossible, his vessel was undetectable, moving through the blessed darkness that should have blinded any human senses. "Report," he snarled. "Unknown projectiles, incoming from multiple vectors." His subordinate replied, panic creeping into the normally controlled tones. They're using no guidance systems we can detect, but their accuracy is impossible. What Velethniks couldn't comprehend was that humanity had spent the months of dimmed sunlight doing what they did best, adapting and innovating. The species that had once navigated by stars had learned to navigate by magnetic fields, radio waves, and the subtle gravitational effects of massive objects. They had turned their supposed weakness into something else entirely. The Battle of the Titan orbital shipyards demonstrated this most dramatically. The collective's assault force approached the facility in perfect formation, their ships invisible to optical sensors in the near-total darkness. They expected to find confused, frightened humans stumbling blind through their own installations. Instead, they found Sergeant Major Torres and her unit waiting for them. Torres had volunteered for the experimental enhancement program 3 weeks into the dimming. Neural implants connected her directly to the facility's sensor network, allowing her to see through radar, sonar, and heat detection simultaneously. She didn't need light to know exactly where each enemy soldier materialized as they boarded her station. "Contact Level 7, Section C," she reported over the comm, her voice calm as she moved through corridors that were pitch black to normal human vision. Moving to engage. The Umbral soldiers had expected terror and confusion. Instead, they found humans who moved through darkness like predators, using enhanced senses and night vision technology that turned their environment into a 3-dimensional battlefield map. But the true turning point came when humanity revealed their ultimate adaptation to the new conditions. The Daybreak Protocol had been 3 months in development, a classified project that the collective's intelligence networks had completely missed. When Admiral Okonkwo gave the authorization, 17 fusion-powered artificial suns ignited simultaneously throughout the inner system, not to restore normal lighting, but to create a weapon. The artificial stars pulsed in coordinated patterns, generating interference waves that disrupted the collective's shadow-based technology, while simultaneously providing humanity with tactical advantages their enemies couldn't counter. Prime Shadow Kethmarai watched his fleet dissolve under the coordinated human assault, his worldview crumbling as surely as his ships. The species he had dismissed as light-dependent cowards had not only survived in darkness, they had thrived in it. How? He transmitted to the human flagship as his own vessel systems failed around him. The response came from Admiral Okonkwo herself, her image appearing on screens throughout the surviving collective ships. "You made a fundamental error," she said, her expression calm in the artificial light of her command center. "You assumed that because we use light, we need it. You assumed that because we avoid darkness, we fear it." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Humanity has been fighting monsters in the dark since we first learned to make fire. You just became the latest ones." The Great War, as historians would later call it, lasted 7 months. When it ended, the Umbral Collective's vast empire had been reduced to scattered remnants, their shadow ships broken, and their certainty about the nature of courage forever shattered. Earth's sun blazed once again at full strength, but humanity had learned something valuable during those months of artificial night. They had discovered that their true strength lay not in the light they could create, but in their ability to fight and win regardless of the conditions. The galaxy would remember the lesson: never assume that humanity's tools make them weak. More often than not, those tools simply make them more dangerous than they were already.